Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful. When the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. 1st of June, coming into the summer months. No, that coming action is going to be a little bit lighter. You're seeing a little bit of it already, but I think we'll probably still have a decent amount of activity this week until the non-farms this Friday, and then after that, whoosh. We got some PMIs today too, so all these things about inflation. I don't know if this month's inflation number is huge still, but definitely if it continues into next month, then it's a real problem, right? But this month I expect it to still be pretty high because of housing, which is finally showing up in the number. All right, so if we come over to the charts, though, things are looking pretty bullish here so far. So come in here, yeah, look at the E-mini. Just, was down a little bit yesterday, but then just taking off overnight. Is that all-time high? Not quite. Not quite all-time high. Treasuries, a little bit down. Interesting. It still looks like you're getting a little bit of steepening in the curve, too, which is good for your banks, but, yeah. Oil taking off here. So OPEC is saying that they're going to wait for the Iran deal to talk about, what they're going to do with supply. But it continues to go up and now back up to $68 a barrel. Remember when people were telling us maybe, $30 a barrel is the new normal? They were wrong. Okay. Gold doing it's okay. They're a little bit of a sell-off today, but still above 1900, easily above 1900, and silver above 28. Silver doing pretty good here past 3 days. And yeah, they could do quite a bit better here when some of these numbers come through. Copper is still struggling a little bit. Remember, China is really trying to tap down on copper in particular. And then the dollar just all over the place. So remember, we had this whole thing on Friday, but then it went right back up. So I think that must have been end of month rebalancing kind of action, and that's what caused that movement. Just because it went back up in the end. If you remember us talking about that last Thursday, Friday. Anyways. Dollar looking pretty weak from yesterday, but stable for now. And coming back over here, how are you guys doing? So I had trouble getting into the YouTube interface today to start the stream. I was like, what the heck? See, look at this. I come to the control room in Brave browser. I even turned down the shields. Manage. Nothing. So I had to go through Chrome. Lame, right? I'm a little mad about it. To be honest. Okay. Oh, I make sure turn on Financial Juice. A little sparse this morning. It's probably going to be a little sparse on the stream in general for the next few. Usually we calm down a little bit in the summer, so. But you got to have a lot more fun. Oh, GDP, and we do have some numbers coming up here at the bottom of the hour. I think it's all Canadian numbers, so I don't know if this really matters. Treasury kind of moving a little bit up here since the open. Check your tweet deck. Anything interesting going on over here? Oh, Sky Adams, don't say things like that. We don't want to say things like that. All right, there's the number. What is Nassim Nicholas Taleb saying here? The idea that a collection of people would get rich at the expense of society for the sole privilege that the world is adopting their currency and not another. What is this word? Sanguinariage? From the old French, meaning right of the Lord. To print money is the difference between the value of money and the cost to produce and distribute it. Okay. The treasuries all went down to the lower end of their range after that Canadian news. Curious. Oh, was there activity in the horse? Huh. So let me check in here. When do we get our CPI numbers? Marseille, that is a new name. I am absolutely available to answer questions. I mean, as long as they're not like really dumb. There's no dumb questions, but that doesn't mean that I might make fun of you if you make a dumb question. I don't. But if it's about trading, it's probably not a dumb question, right? As your first, I know. I don't recognize that name. Is Le Marsin? Are you from France? Okay, which platform are you using? I use Jigsaw Day Trader. I have an affiliate link in the video description. And I have a video about the trading software that I use. If you go onto the main channel, it'll be in one of those playlists. So what is the best futures trading software platform? So for the DOM, I use Jigsaw. And then for all of the charts, I'm using NinjaTrader right now. Le Masse says, exactly. So you are from France? So I'd be curious to know your opinion about the political climate in France, because it seems like I don't know. I find it confusing. I think that it is really hard. Here's the thing. In the United States, I understand different outlets' biases and like all of the history and stuff, so I can really read into the context about a particular news story. When I hear a news story coming out of France, I have like zero context. So here on one hand, I hear this story that like the military is like ready to take over the country or something like that. or like threatening. I don't know. It's just like a crazy thing that people in the military would even say something like that, right? But then on the other hand, I hear the poll numbers, and Macron, the guy who's already in there right now, appears to have a commanding lead. So if I was here in the United States and I hear that, I'd be like, well, yeah, but the poll doesn't really matter because it's probably going to be really close anyways. And there's some issues with the polling that we know exist and all of these things. I don't know if that's the thing in France. So I'm sitting over here like, okay, so is France like on the precipice of disaster, or should I like not worry about it? And I decided that I probably should not worry about it. But man, it was just like a lot of the headlines I hear coming out of Europe sound like absolutely crazy to me. But France in particular, I was like, whoa, what is going on? Oh, you know, the other one that really gets me. This is the one that really gets me. I haven't heard from Bots from a while, so I don't because he's my Canadian. They suspended elections in Canada. Did you hear this story? Here's the thing. I haven't seen a darned thing about it on the internet. I see it on TikTok. They're like, oh, they suspended elections. But I don't see it. It's not on the news. So that seems like that would be like worldwide news, like a big deal. That they're not going to have elections in Canada until after the pandemic? What? I can't believe it. There's no way. Man, people in the United States, what would people do if they canceled the election? Like if Donald Trump had tried to cancel the election? Or what if Joe Biden decided to cancel the 2022 elections, right? Like people would absolutely flip out. About Canada, yeah, that's what I heard too. After the pandemic, as he says, right? It's like, well, you hear the Fauci the other day saying it's still too early to ease restrictions because apparently his threshold is 10,000 cases per day. He's been pretty consistent about that. I don't know. Here in Utah, it is open. Most like the grocery stores now, you don't have to wear a mask to go to the grocery store. And you're starting to see that strange dichotomy, like some people still wear the masks and it's like, I'm pretty sure that the people that are wearing the masks are people that were already vaccinated. So like, why wear it? Because yeah, it's just like weird. But then I'm sitting there like, well, if I wear a mask, then people will think that I might be sick and will think bad things about me. You know? I understand. I'm telling you what, they lied about easing the restrictions on the masks. They totally did. Like the science is that if you've been vaccinated or frankly if you've had it before, you don't need to wear the masks. There's like no point to it. In fact, I think that a lot of the more recent studies should bring it into real question about whether masks are effective at all. But I'm not going to touch that one. I'm just going to say that we should follow what the policymakers say. But they totally held off on doing it because they knew the social consequences of it, you know? Fernando Santos says you can still get the virus after you've been vaccinated. Yeah, there's like 3 cases of it. Yeah. So you know what? They did a study. There was a study out last week that I read. And they were basically saying what they were trying to determine was like if you've had it and if you've been vaccinated and vice versa, like how much immunity do you really have and how long will it last? Because there was a lot of concern that, you know, that you would need boosters and things like that. And the general reading that I got from the study was that vaccine boosters will probably not be needed unless there is a significant mutation for the virus that, you know, the current vaccination doesn't deal with. So that was interesting. But then they went through and they looked at it and they determined if you had the virus that you also had pretty strong immunity. But if you had the virus and then you got the vaccine, there was like no way in hell, based on the number of antibodies and stuff that you would have, there's no way that you were going to catch it. If you listen to the Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J earnings calls, they are saying the vaccine isn't a one-off. At least they certainly aren't planning for it being a one-off. Well, sure. But just because the one study out there says that you probably won't need booster shots doesn't mean that they won't try and sell us all on it, right? Well, that 30-year looks eager to press down, doesn't it? So you're still getting this steepening where the 30-year just goes whoosh. Studies are people banking on consensus through studies and peer review will be the death of us. Okay, do you have an opinion on the Bookmap software? It looks like good software. So the first thing is that when I started, Bookmap was around, but first of all, it was more expensive. So I didn't like that it was more expensive. And I much preferred the ecosystem that Jigsaw was putting out. So don't get me wrong, Peter's not perfect. Him and I have kind of had a little bit of like, because one time I put out a little toy before I bought Jigsaw. I put out a little toy that would kind of show you some of similar things to Jigsaw and Ninja Trader. He got really mad about that, but it's all going under the rug. And you know, the platform recently, because they've been working on the charts, which it sucks, but they kind of needed to do it because of the way that things have been going in the industry. They kind of needed to do it. But so there hasn't been a lot of new features in Jigsaw because of that. But I also think that Peter is giving you much more of a straight shooter, to be honest with you. I mean, and that isn't to mean that he understands everything. I think that if he read some of the market making models sort of stuff that I've read recently, and some of this market pricing things recently, would probably change his views on a couple of things. You know what I mean? But he's never been one to be like, oh yeah, you do this one thing and here's this setup and it's totally works and our software is going to make you tons of money and everything. He's always been really upfront that like trading is really effing hard, and we developed this software in conjunction with people that are like actually trading and making money off of doing it, and that the software itself is not necessarily going to be the thing that's going to make you money, right? But it has all of the features that those people desire. Bookmap, in my opinion, kind of says some things from time to time to kind of push their software that are just not true. So like they make a big deal out of if you see the absorption and the lines on your Vista chart, that price is going to turn around and sorry, doesn't work that way. You're going to see bounces off of those levels, and when it happens, it's going to be so perfect. It's like, that's why it moved, right? And then you're going to see another one where it just goes right through it. And how do you know which one is which? I don't know. And then they also have this new stuff, right? Where it's like, if you have market by order data, so if you're already spending $150 a month on your data, and then you can spend another $100 a month to Bookmap to use their software to be able to see icebergs and stops. And it's like, well, first of all, icebergs aren't really very useful, to be honest with you. I like to look out for icebergs because if I see a mispricing somewhere, it may be because of an iceberg, and I might be able to take advantage of it, right? But doesn't really tell you what direction it's going to go. Really doesn't. They kind of make it seem like, oh yeah, that's iceberg. That's somebody who really wants to buy a ton of stuff. That's going to affect the future. No. Usually they're hedgers, and it's just it doesn't matter. Understand that these guys that hedge, they take the trade that they have to, because they have to hedge something else that they've already taken it, right? And they don't know what the price of the asset is worth exactly, and they don't care. And so it's not that indicative of where we're going, unless it's like a really absolutely massive huge order. And how would you know that, right? Bookmap is good to see what happened, but not what's going to happen. Yeah, well, exactly, right? I don't see how you understand how the market moved without the order flow, but the order flow is not necessarily predictive, right? Where I think the order flow could potentially be predictive is when you have a really strong setup of some sort, like news setup, right? Or even sentiment situational setup, where you have a really strong idea of what the big guys are going to try and do, and then you start to see them doing it on the DOM. Then you got something predictive, right? But the predictive thing was like, you knew based on context what the big guys were going to try and do. And then what you see in Bookmap or Jigsaw's confirmation, right? Anyways, so another thing that I don't like about Bookmap, I'm not presenting these as like things I don't. Those other things were just kind of like, okay. This is why I went with Jigsaw. One thing that I don't like about Bookmap is it's in Java. I'm just not a fan of Java. Just the fact that they used Java was like, I don't want to touch that. So there's just developing in Java is just not good anymore. 10, 20 years ago, when I first started computer programming, it was kind of on its way out, and it's just stuck around. Like, so many businesses use it, yes, and there's definitely probably more Java jobs than anything else. It's a popular language, but it's old. It hasn't evolved very well compared to the rest of the industry. C# is just objectively better in every way, especially for Windows and especially for GUI applications. And it's not very well suited to algorithmic trading either, really. I don't think any software can tell where it's going. I haven't come across yet. Well, I think that it's possible. It's possible, Gus, but probably, one, they wouldn't do it. and probably two, if they did do it and it was on a software platform, there'd be too many people using it and it would lose edge. I'm trying to fix my... Yeah. My Vista got a little screwed up there. So I'll give you a hint. Okay. Something that is truly predictive is knowing what the asset is worth, right? How do you determine what's something worth? Well, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard for because it's different for every asset, right? But let's just say that it was a stock. Let's do stock, because I don't do stocks and I don't care what people think about the stocks, right? When you do stocks, what you do is you look at the current value of the company, all of the assets that it has, what those assets are worth, and then you look at its cash flows. You make estimates about what their future cash flows are going to be over a certain time period, and you try and price those future cash flows into the price of the stock, right? So you know what it's worth. And one of the reasons why I feel that it's very difficult for retail traders to be competitive in stocks is because, especially like market making stocks, is because those institutions have such amazing data. It's really amazing data to be able to calculate based on a number of factors what an individual stock should be worth, right? And sometimes something will happen. Somebody needs to hedge. Somebody really wants to buy it. Who knows? But sometimes something will come in and it will move away from that, calculated true value. And then it becomes why? Well, maybe there was a piece of news that changes the value of the stock in a way that your model can't handle, which is going to happen from time to time, right? Or at least that your model can't factor it in quickly enough, right? That could be. But it could also be like somebody just needs to buy some, and so they're temporarily buying it away from value, and you know that when they're done, it's going to come back to it, right? That is something that, from what I have seen, is extremely predictive, right? Basically, fundamentals are predictive. Or if there's news, I might not know where it's going to go to because I might not be able to calculate what it should be worth after that. But there are certain pieces of news that are going to change the value of the stock. And as soon as you hear that piece of news, you know what it's going to do. You know what the market's going to do, right? Aggregated data or non-aggregated, what do you prefer? Well, my understanding is that everybody aggregates the data to some extent, right? So I'm just using rhythmic. Or are you talking about like the filtering? I don't know. I'm pretty sure that every data platform during high volume times aggregate things a little bit. But I don't know if it really matters a whole lot either. I don't know. Rhythmic has an option for non-aggregated. I'm assuming that I'm on aggregated though. If that's the case, then I mean, do they charge more for it? I bet they charge more for it, right? Well, I tell you what, the one thing that I've noticed that's kind of frustrating. So do you see this little, I'll bring it over here. So here's this little chart here. I have an algorithm that trades off of this, and it's actually using this little squiggly line right here. So if it gets below a certain point, then it tries to take a trade based off of that. But what you will see happen is this oscillates so much. It's quite sensitive to errors in the data. Does that make sense? Because it oscillates back and forth so quickly, it's quite sensitive to errors in the data. Because this is supposed to be like if it goes... Oh, why do I have it to 6? Well, let's just see what it does. It might try taking too many trades. Yeah, there can be like 10,000 quote changes in a second. You'll only see a fraction of it. Exactly. But here on this one, the difference between tick replay, the difference between tick replay and live data, because of that particular indicator, I think it's a little bit much. And so the way that it performs on the back test versus the way that it performs live is different. It's kind of annoying. Because the way that it performs on the back test is like super amazing, and the way that it performs live is seems kind of hit and miss to me. You would need the raw tape data streams, yeah. Well, that's why I've just been kind of testing it live from time to time. What market data do you use? I'm using Rhythmic right now. Apparently CQG has increased the number of levels that you see on the S&P 500. So I suppose I could go to Rhythmic. There might be some advantages for me to going to Rhythmic. I can get a little bit more data, not a little bit, a lot more data if I go over to CQG/Continuum. If I moved over to NinjaTrader Brokerage and started using their data, I might do that. I still can't believe I use Kinetic. Or is it Kinetic or is it Continuum? I forget what is what and all that stuff. I'm really not sure if I want to go, what I want to do here, man. Which data is better? Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it, to be honest with you. Like, here's the thing. The differences in the data are so minute that you are not going to notice. If you're doing algorithmic trading, you might notice. And there's no way for me to know how your strategy would react to it. The only way to know would be for you to put your algorithm on both the data feeds at the same time and see if they take different trades. You know what I mean? Robinhood best data. Oh, come on, no. So if I moved over to Rhythmic and CQG will fail from time to time, so they're the same. I don't think that there's a single data feed out there that won't fail at least once on you. Like during the pandemic and everything, yeah, there was some crazy stuff going on, right? Like when volume really gets out of hand, yeah, wouldn't be surprised if your data feed at the very least like restarts on you. Rhythmic candle paint's different to Continuum? I don't know. I can tell you that Rhythmic is more forward thinking. Like CQG is getting the market by order data, but Rhythmic had it way before anybody else. And they have their Rhythmic API. You know, it's things like that. So Rhythmic does seem to be more algorithmic trading focused. It seems to me that Rhythmic charges you a little bit more, but I don't know. Everybody's been charging more. I don't know what the fees are for CQG right now. Any day Rhythmic. Yeah, I don't know. But what I was going to get at was, in my opinion, Rhythmic is probably better. It's kind of hard to really say because there's probably a lot about that we don't understand. But that's kind of the larger point, is that like the differences between the data feeds are so tiny, right? Like you just got to understand that that's not necessarily the edge, you know? Like that's really useful information. But it's not what gets me in a trade. If anything, it kind of will prevent me from getting into a trade. Like if I see something that seems out of line, then the first question that I'm going to be asking is why, right? And then
So what's the order flow? What is the order flow doing? So yeah, I think when you're new, I totally get it. Like you're starting everything out and you're like, okay, like here's these brokers. I should decide what the best broker is. I should decide what the best software is. I just should decide what the best data feed is. The thing about all of that that's going to matter the most to you is which software you select. The brokers, I mean, there's differences in brokers and everything, but like really the thing that's going to matter the most to you and how you trade every day and everything is getting the platform that you want, right? If you go with Jigsaw, you can use it on pretty much everywhere now. Where can so you can mail me at speculatorseth@protonmail.com. I believe I have some information on my website too about how to get in contact with me, but speculatorseth@protonmail.com. Or you can just get on Discord and you can just message me on Discord. You don't have to add me as a friend first for me to be able to see your message. So you can always message me on Discord. I almost always reply, unless you say something spammy. It's actually been a little bit quieter on that front. It used to be, man, that I would get like 6 people a day. Now it's more like 2 or 3. Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm here, folks. That's why I'm here. Not too happy about being 3,000 in line, but hey. Anyways. Yeah, the software matters the most. And even then on the software, it's like, you know what? Sometimes we stress about things that don't matter. You know? Like, I really like Euler's Super Smoother. Super Smoother is a really great moving average. My backtesting has shown that there's significant advantages to that moving average over others. It's not going to make you profitable on your own, but there's significant advantages to using the super smooth moving average compared to others. They don't have that on Jigsaw. So I don't use Jigsaw. I really like my own indicators, like my histograms and especially the inventory cost basis is the big one. And then my synthetics. The synthetics I cannot trade without. Hey, Stick, how's it going? Welcome back. Here every day, Stick. My synthetic dollar index, I didn't get how people trade without that. That's the real reason to pay the $5 a month for my indicator package is the synthetic dollar and the spreads. Good. Other platforms don't have that, so. But if Jigsaw had that one thing, then yeah, even though the charts aren't as good as NinjaTrader 8, I could probably handle moving over to it. You know what I mean? Because where are the edges really? Being able to see a lot of different products and sort out the relationships between the markets and how they relate to the current news and sentiment. That's the real edge, right? I'm looking for a situation where the market is unable to price things correctly. Did you get a good sleep today? Your mood is a lot better than yesterday's?
Oh, I think that my mood yesterday was, I don't know why my brain was just a little scatterbrained yesterday, right? But I don't think that it was anything to do with me like not being on or anything. Dealing with MVVM and WPF is a little bit of a headache. There's a reason that Microsoft abandoned it, basically. For that, it used to be that was what you used, and then Microsoft and the industry as a whole kind of moved away from that towards like you build applications, are basically all your applications are web applications. Right? Like Discord desktop is basically the exact same thing as Discord browser. Like they have the same base. It's all browser based. Anyways, so dealing with that, and like if I was programming in WPF every day, then I probably would have gone through that thing like a breeze. But nah, it's always been like I have to look up reference code and stuff like that, like because there's so many teeny tiny little details about it that you have to get right. It's like if you don't have all your T's crossed and your I's dotted, it doesn't work. And it's really hard to go through all of your code and figure out which I you didn't cross. You know what I mean? And the online documentation and stuff about these sorts of things isn't very good. Like you'd think there would be like, oh, okay, here's an example that shows you every little thing that you need to know to set this up, but it's not, because there's the specifics. Your specific use case is going to differ too much. So yeah, so that's kind of why I felt like a little scatterbrained, because I was trying to figure all that stuff out. And at the same time, I was going through like, okay, so I could add this, and this, and that would be easy. But then I'm like, that's not the thing that matters. That's not like if anybody was watching this. Heaven forbid anybody watches that on replay. They're trying to figure out what I'm going on about, trying to go into the thing that matters. So the market's pretty stuck right now, by the way. The treasuries seem to be trying to squeeze it higher. You can also open inspect element in the Discord desktop browser. Really? That's funny. But yeah, so that's always. But we got the thing that we needed to do done, right? We've got a pretty good interface, and we will get once I get the binding finished. I got to get the binding on the sub objects done and everything. But once we get that finished, and I think that I should be pretty close to getting like something working, and I think that it'll be really cool. Like I don't know, maybe I was just having like the delusions of grandeur sort of a thing, but like I was daydreaming about it the other day, and I was like, like everybody should use this. Once we get it in there and it works well, everybody should use it, and we can put it on GitHub. And I even bet you that a bunch of people will try and contribute. So there's an iceberg there, 22.5. I think I'm stuck here. I have not heard anything come out of Financial Juice today. Oh no, wait, I did too when they released the numbers at 6:30. Krispy Kreme's reported a sales rebound ahead of planned IPO as American diners embrace breakfast again post-pandemic. There's going to be Krispy Kreme, the stock? I don't know. I remember when there was only one Krispy Kreme's in Utah, and people would travel all the way down to Provo to get those donuts. Like when I was in high school. And now they're everywhere and nobody cares. Still might be worth looking at. I like IPOs. If it's a good company, man, IPO is the way to do it. Let's see here. Brannigan Baird. There are 4 major events to be aware of in June. They are the reason for the low volume markets over the last 2 weeks. ECB meeting and U.S. inflation, June 10th. FOMC meeting, June 16th. The SEC Bitcoin ETF. No, CPI matters too, bro. Oh, I guess he said U.S. inflation, 10th of June. Jobs number this Friday too. I think that matters. Oh, this guy is asking, it started in April? Yes, go back and look at it. So, like, the whole month has been volatile. Bill O'Reilly, do you ever wonder why Wall Street is continually getting richer while Main Street gets left in the dust? I'm taking a closer look to see what the folks can do to get ahead. Join me for a special broadcast this Thursday at 1 p.m. Bill O'Reilly. Bill. It's kind of weird to think that Bill O'Reilly is not on Fox anymore. Reddit stocks are red hot. Let's come over and look at that. What are they talking about today, Shit. Well, I should have gotten out of that when there was the, when we had the, what do we call it? The iceberg at 22.5. I should have been getting out. And I wasn't really paying attention. Now they've gone 2 ticks beyond me. Wow. Well. Anyways, if we come back down here, what do they got? The usual suspects. What's SNDL? SNDL. Sundial Growers. Sundial Growers, a new one on that list. Yeah. The rest of them is the same nonsense. Like what I think has happened is they all got in on, all of these new traders came in at the same time and got in on the stocks that were like breaking out, and then they've just all doubled down on that. Because it hasn't really changed ever since the GameStop thing. In other words, Reddit hasn't been the continual giver of good ticker symbols to trade like maybe many people thought they would be. They've become a cult instead. I'm quite upset here. Looks like some bullishness came from the 6J. Yeah, YouTube Finance is the same stocks in January. Exactly. Exactly. Do you think the RBA did it on purpose? I swear they are. Not sure what you mean by that. What did the RBA do exactly? %, probability of rate change to 0%. Let's read your link stick. I didn't see anything about that in my morning notes over the past week, so RBA rate indicator shows market expectations of the change in the official cash rate set by the Reserve Bank of Australia. The indicator calculates the percentage probability of an RBA interest rate change based on the market-determined prices in the ASX 30-day interbank cash rate futures. Table below illustrates how market expectations of an interest rate change in the next RBA board meeting have changed in the last few days. The RBA indicators indicated update at the end of each business day. On the June 1st, the RBA left the official cash rate unchanged. The current official cash rate was 0.1%. They think that's going to go to 0. I don't know. That wouldn't. You're not saying that has anything to do with the treasuries moving up, are you? Hmm. Okay. Did the no? That move happened before the E-mini still hasn't done much of anything, really. No, but I do see some correlation with Japanese yen going on here, so. Well, I'm asking if you think reserve banks decide to watch out speculators like that when they're betting big on one direction. No. Because like they're much more concerned about like what things are worth, right? So like there's a chicken in the egg problem with that, right, Stick? Because a lot of people say, oh, the interest rate traders are pushing prices down, and that means that they're forcing the Fed to raise rates earlier. I don't think it works that way. I think that they're using the economic conditions and their models based on what that say what the Fed is likely to do, to price the treasuries as they should be correctly priced, and the Federal Reserve is going to continue to follow their policy. You know what I mean? That's what I think. But some people think that the traders force the Federal Reserve in effect to do something, but I don't believe that that's true. How would you prove that that's the case? So one of the problems with those, I would always be careful about a market theory that's like not falsifiable per se. Like, so I have a model, right? So like my Bitcoin model. Somebody asked me once, can you falsify the model? Well, I mean, that's not how models work, right? Because the model is not a direct analog of the market. It's, the only direct analog of the market is the market. It's a simplified version of the market to try and help us understand what's going on better, right? But so the question really is, how effective is a model? Is there actually some efficacy to it, or is it like random, right? And how do you determine that? Well, you look at what the model says, and then you compare that to the actual behavior of the market, right? But when you have something like, interest rate traders control the Federal Reserve or whatever the deal is, how would you prove that true or false? There's no way to do it, right? So it kind of, I think that kind of fits in the realm of like conspiracy theories, right? Mm-hmm. Traders don't have power like that over, yeah. Like Elliott wave is not falsifiable when they have 18 different explanations when the original wave pattern is wrong. Yeah. But that's more goalpost moving, right? Like, I think that the base tenets of technical analysis are very falsifiable and have been quite thoroughly proven wrong. But what happens is when you prove that to them, they just kind of move the goalpost. So if you say, well, trading a moving average crossover doesn't work, then they'll say, well, you just have to trade the right set of conditions of the moving average crossover. Okay. what are the conditions? And then if they tell you, you can show them and you can show why it works or doesn't work. But often they themselves don't know. You know what, though? I was kind of doing a little bit of research on that, though. And one of the things that I've kind of been learning is that if you're going to do technical analysis of that sort, that you really have to be using a bunch of different strategies, right? Like you want to have like 5 to 10 trading strategies. And if they're in a severe drawdown, you can kind of choose when to turn them on and off. But essentially the combination of those 5 strategies is where you could potentially get, use those to take on risk so that you can get an outsized return, but then manage it so that you don't have huge drawdowns on the other side. Oh yeah, by the way, good morning, Ace, if I didn't say that. I think it's more so than that. Like, so here, let me show you this thing I saw the other day. Being stingy for me again. Okay, so here's a thread on r/day trading that did pretty good, and it had a good 100 comments or so. Is it bad that everyone is trading according to the same patterns? ? If everyone thinks the stock will break out after an ascending triangle, could someone take advantage of that to drive the price up higher, trap bulls, and take profits? If everyone thinks the stock will continue in a strong downtrend after a bear flag, could someone create a bear flag to signal the market to sell, driving it lower so that they can buy it for a better price? I'm wondering if for every pattern I'm learning about, is there someone using it against me? Yep. I've heard Duck say he avoids heavily manipulated penny stocks and only trades between $5 and $10 in higher volume, and also where this happens a lot in crypto. What types of volatile stocks are you guys trading? I'm just very skeptical because I got screwed by a culty hyped up biotech Twitter stock before I knew anything about day trading, and I was basically gambling. And then this stock dropped down to $2, and I did a research, and all of the insiders, CEO, CFO, had sold millions. They dumped it all, so I just kind of don't trust anyone, not even the CEO. I'm guessing this is why you have to look at other indicators and technical analysis in conjunction with just looking at patterns. But as someone who has never day traded, I'm wondering how reliable patterns are for you guys if you've experienced any manipulation. Okay. So, what do we know? We know that every order affects the market and that there is a optimal number of contracts to trade for an inefficiency. So we want to trade if there's an inefficiency in the market, and based on that inefficiency, there's a certain number of contracts that you can trade for it, right? And if more contracts than that trade, then you're creating an inefficiency in the other direction, essentially, right? Let's see what Reddit says. And then we can kind of falsify some of this stuff based off of what we know. This guy, that was not the top comment before. People use patterns because it has a certain winning percentage. Of course they will fail, but they work more times than they fail. But that's why we have risk management, so that we know when to cut them if they fail and when to take profits. Okay, but what if there's a pattern that is just there because it's there? Or what if too many people traded it? So it used to be a pattern, and now everybody on Reddit knows about it, and more people are trading that pattern than there should be. What's going to happen? Well, based off of what we know, it's going to create an inefficiency the other direction, and you're going to lose money off of that inefficiency, right? That's what we know. So this thing that like patterns, because the patterns have a winning percentage, false. Why? Because the win rate that a pattern gets is a stochastic variable that changes as the data set changes, right? So this one we know right here, right away, that's wrong. He's dead wrong. Just because it had a winning percentage in the past doesn't mean that it will in the future. Now, what do they have at the bottom of the hour here? Market manufacturing PMI May for Canada. We got some numbers in 15 minutes that matter, but I'm just going to let the E-mini go here for a little bit, see what happens. Okay, now this first one. This is exactly what we were trying to do. Hop on what the algos are working on. It makes it predictable. Okay, so what's the issue with this one? Well, again, for a given inefficiency, there is an optimal number of contracts to trade that inefficiency. If there is a robot that sees that inefficiency and trades it, the robot will know what the optimal number of contracts to trade is and will use that optimal number of contracts. Yeah? So trying to follow it would just create inefficiency and make it so that you lose money on the trade, right? Because there's like, there's a certain number of contracts. If you can get in early and on that, then you could make some money, right? But if you can't, the robot's already made them all, then anybody that gets on after the robot is going to lose money, right? Why not just invest in a bunch of different active management funds in comparison to this idea of multiple trading bots? Well, sure. I mean, why not just give it to a hedge fund? If you have a big enough chunk of money, why not just give it to a hedge fund that gives you a good return and let them manage it? It'd be, the amount that you would make would probably be more. You got to understand that your own proprietary trading is almost always in the end going to net you less than if you just put it in an index fund. I want to move that, by the way. Yeah, if it goes in your direction, great. If not, get out. But the reality is your pattern is not likely the cause. It's a risk management strategy. Yeah. I had to explain to my other Discord that their large strategies are purely risk management, whether they want to believe that or not. You can draw randomized horizontal lines as your trigger, and if it goes in your direction, great. If not, get out. But the reality is your pattern is likely not the cause. Exactly. Maybe instead of inefficiency, just say it as it is. Price below its relative value. Well, yeah, that's... I don't know. Why should I use the word inefficiency? I just use the term inefficiency because that's what they use. That's what the scholarly literature that I've read uses. But more to the point of what Trade Trotter was saying is that most of these strategies that where people are using technical analysis, when they're making money off of it, it's not because that signal has edge necessarily. It's because they're taking on excessive risk, and their technical analysis allows them to manage the trade correctly. Or at least helps them manage the trade a little bit. I think there can be issues with that, but So I have to say, they're on the open. They seemed pretty bullish, no? And it flipped right back around, volume right back down. But that's 1,000 contracts. I don't know if that's a big deal. I'm not sure that's a big deal. The Treasury looks like it is just chopping around furiously, trying to screw everybody over. That's what that one looks like to me. And there was a little bit of aggressive buying action there, but they tamped down on it. Loan of account equals bad risk management strategy. Slow and consistent dwindling of capital equals risk management. Yeah. Well, but that's the thing is like, I think most day traders will have like a daily loss limit. Whether or not they stick to it is another thing. But if you use a daily loss limit, that certainly helps. Shit. I should stop swearing. Crap. Can do irresponsible things here in the treasury. I wonder though, I'm kind of sensing a little bit of, maybe not. I don't know. Treasury down, E-mini down has me a little bit. Even the bigger time frame levels that are strictly price advertising operate the same. Okay, we're approaching yesterday's low. If we break, we go short. Can write that until it's no longer the case. Yeah, but then the issue with that one is that then that price level doesn't end up actually meaning anything, and it just chops around it, and you get diced to pieces, right? That's where I kind of get to, like, if you take the position that I just want to buy something when its price is lower than what it should be, and vice versa, then kind of all these patterns are kind of like seem a little bit silly, right? Because there could be any number of reasons why that pattern could exist, and it has absolutely nothing to do with what the fundamental value of it is. Just a trigger point where people are deciding whether they're right or wrong. Yeah, but I guess we're saying the same thing. I don't know. It's an arbitrarily defined point, right? And it would only make you money if there is actually a true, like, percentage skew on that particular thing. And what people do is they go in and they say, okay, well, in that kind of situation, is there that kind of a percentage? And if it is, then they trade off of it with the assumption that that behavior will continue. It's just the problem is that it doesn't. Rarely does. If it's based on technical analysis that is popular, it definitely will not. But the big but is that it seems like that there are some inefficiencies that tend to naturally happen. I shouldn't use the word naturally. When I say naturally, so like there are inefficiencies in the order book that are naturally there as a consequence of using the order book that you can't get rid of without getting rid of the order book, right? These are more like inefficiencies that just tend to happen because that's the way that people think. But those, from my experience, those inefficiencies only exist in very inefficient markets. So like we were talking about this, remember the other day we were talking about this study where they looked at certain momentum strategies and they found that they worked in the Chinese markets but not in more mature markets of US and Europe, right? Like that would be a perfect example. Need to analyze support and reset. Well, I don't. And know why it was. Well, yeah. So exactly. But that's the thing. How do you know why it was resistance or support? Well, I guess there's some situations where we can determine that. Like, so for instance, we know that there are certain gamma levels that definitely do matter, right? So the thing is that it seems to me like ever since the pandemic, but I would say even before that, because it certainly wasn't the case in like 2016, 2017, but like 2018, 2019, 2020, it seemed to work that like an inefficiency has been introduced into the market, that like the market seems incapable of correctly pricing in the easy liquidity for whatever reason. So at current, seems like you can get trends. To your point, technical trading is arbitrary, yeah. Well, it could be arbitrary, yeah. I mean, that's the thing is I don't think that technical analysts believe that it's arbitrary, right? They believe that they are following the footsteps of other traders, right? So, like, this, the thing is, like, there probably was a time where that would work, right? There probably was a time where that would work because back then, the large players, even the largest players, didn't necessarily completely understand market impact, or at least not to the effect that they could calculate the optimal number of contracts to trade. So they might have taken a big trade and only used up half of the edge in it, and then the technical traders could follow that and still make money, right? But when you come in today where things are more optimal and the big fish know exactly how many contracts to trade and already arbitrage the thing out, then trying to follow other people just ends up being dismal. This now there as well. Well, I'm not going to make a call on it because I don't have any kind of actionable signal here. I'm stuck in this thing in the treasury that is a failed trade, essentially. They're looking for market manufacturing PMI final 61.5. We can get the news here in about a minute and a half. You want finite solutions, technical isn't? Well, I don't know. Like let's go back a little second, RJ. The reason that I'm against technical analysis, generally speaking, is because I've programmed a ton of strategies and I know that they don't work. Yeah, that one stopped me out. That sucks. It really sucks that I had that trade and it was a good trade and they went and then brought it back down. I do that all the time. Exactly, you can't possibly factor in everything in a backtest. Well, but what you can do is you can go through and you can say that, hey, these technical trading rules that they talk about don't work, right? Now, can you go back and you can do something like, I'm going to take my trade based off of the news and then I'm going to manage it according to technical analysis of some sort? Seems like you can. And I think that there are certain kinds of technical indicators that give you a really good idea of risk reward, and therefore using them can help you manage risk. Okay, so there's the news. So it's 61.2, so not dramatically different. Not sure why the treasuries slamming back down to the lows. That ZB is just like angry. They just hiked it up so they could dump it on us. Oh, there you go. Why do those guys at Axie and SMB Capital take the effort to draw their little wrenches, flags, etc.? For instance, the SMB video from 4 days ago, the flag breakout trade. Who knows? Like, here's the thing. If I went and I started a prop firm or an education course that basically said, oh, all of this technical analysis, there's problems with it, and, you know, don't do it. And my whole course was about like how to price treasuries, nobody would buy it. Nobody would buy it. They would think, oh, that sounds too complicated for me. They wouldn't buy it. Joey says, I'm a data science student and find day trading very interesting. Do you know how to get accurate market data with an API? Well, so I think that the most common API that people are using right now is Alpaca. And that's going to be more if you trade equities, right? What I do is I just trade it in NinjaTrader. So you could go and you could use NinjaTrader, and they have a way to get set up with live market data for 2 weeks. So you could do that, and you could program stuff in NinjaTrader and see how it goes. SMB trades high volume stocks, and they're looking for stocks that are being traded a lot by suckers. But more to the thing with Axie, I'm not accusing them of using things that they don't work or anything of the sort. I'm merely stating that anybody that tries to, if you don't include some degree of technical analysis, it's difficult, if not impossible, to catch the interest of people to make any money. But more to the point, probably they believe a lot of things that they don't necessarily have proof for and that they can't prove actually works. And so they would say, well, I've made money from using it, so I know that it works. But that's not an empirical approach. And maybe if they had the skills to go through and do an empirical approach, they would see issues with their strategy and they wouldn't use it anymore, right? So that kind of comes down to like, you could believe something, it could be dead wrong, and then you still make money. And then what are you going to do? You're going to turn around and you're going to teach it to other people. Drop 2 images on Discord here. Let me see. Well, so let me tell you something else though. Okay. The bull and bear flag formation is a real thing. The issue is that every time that you see the formation doesn't necessarily mean that this situation is happening, but we know that there is an issue with order books, that the market is not able to fully price in certain events quickly enough. And so when those kinds of events happen, you are very likely to get a bull flag while the order book recovers, and then a continuation. So I wouldn't look at the chart to try and figure out when that's happening. You kind of need to know why the meta order is coming through. Yeah? Does that make sense? So for instance, if what would be a good example? What are the numbers this Friday supposed to be? Okay. That's next week. This week. Okay. This week they're expecting a non-farm employment change of 645,000. If on Friday that number comes out and the actual number is 1 million, the S&P 500 is going to go up, right? We know it's going to go up. That's easy call, right? What is it going to go up to? Well, I don't know how to calculate that, but I bet you that there's a model that we could use to try and calculate what the employment numbers should have, what impact it should have on the S&P 500 and how far it should go, right? But let's just say it's probably enough that it would take them all day to price it in. So if the S&P 500 is here and the true value of it now with that piece of news is all the way up here, in a purely efficient market, we should see it go straight up to here almost immediately, right? Like the market should be able to just immediately price that in. Yeah? But markets don't do that, do they? Why not? Because you use a limit order book, and the limit order book has restrictions from liquidity on the participants that are involved, and so it can't go up there. So what does it have to do? It has to go up until they reach the limit of their impact and do this, and then they'll do another leg, and they'll do another leg, right? And that's just because of the order book, right? So if you know that that's happening, then you absolutely can use that. But sometimes it does that and it's just random. Like this morning, the S&P 500 is down. Is it going to go down all day? Don't know. An acquaintance built an Ego but says it's in beta. Would it be safe to try it? Well, it would certainly be safe to download it and try it on Sim. Elliott wave pattern. Well, Elliott wave says that they tend to happen in threes, right? I don't know of any reason why it would tend to happen in threes. I just know that there are certain kinds of moves that the market can't price in fast enough, and when it happens, they have to use those flags to get there because they have to let the order book recover, essentially. And that's why you get a lot of these order flow traders that look for like the absorption. They see the absorption against the move and they say, okay, this is where they're taking profits and I need to get out. I used to do that all the time, right? But what we've discovered now is actually the reason that they're getting out is because of the limits of the order book. And so if you're like really swinging it, you don't want to take it off there at all. But then how do you know how far it's going to go? That's the question. That's what we need to learn. We need to go in and we need to come up with, I think that what I want to do, my next so I got some projects, but I'll tell you what I'm thinking about doing. I'm reading a book right now where he's talking about modeling, and he's building like a model for every market. So the treasury market, the S&P 500 market, and the euro dollar market. So I think, I want to build a model like that and do the stuff that he's talking about in this book, just for the learning of it. But then I want to go back and I want to create a model for every number. I want to create a model for every number that is basically based on how much it beats, how far does it tend to go? Yeah. And then what I should be able to do is I should be able to sit there and wait for the news to come out and read what the number is and calculate immediately how many ticks it should go and what the optimal number of contracts to trade it is. And then based on that, know when I want to swing it and when not. That's what I'm thinking about building. That'd be super hard. That's going to be years of work, I think. But we could do them for like the big ones first. Jobs number and the inflation numbers. So do we have more at the top of the hour, right? ISM manufacturing. Yeah. I'm really disappointed in my read of the treasuries today. Because what did I do? I had one trade that was a good trade. It just didn't work out. And then I started trying to average it out. And then because I still thought that it was going to go up, and that was dead wrong too. But I didn't really have a really strong reason to think that it was going to go up, you know? So for it to just come back down is just like a continuation of like, it's just really hard to know what the treasuries are going to do. And that's where I'm like, I'm trying to use the momentum on it, but that doesn't work very well in treasuries. One of the things I think one of the reasons why I soured on technical analysis so quickly was because I've always been trying to do it on the treasuries. And none of that stuff works on the treasuries at all. Okay, this is still a little bit of a slip. Kind of wondering why, if there's anything going on out there. No, I don't really see anything out there saying, ain't giving me any clear bias. Maybe try a real market like the ES. The treasury is the realest market out there, man. The fixed income markets are orders of magnitude larger than the equity markets, and there's a reason for that. And yeah, the treasury market is a very efficient market. Yeah. If you found some sort of technical analysis indicator that was really consistent on treasuries, then I bet you it would probably work on other things and really well. But you're going to have to do something really sophisticated to find that in the treasuries. But it wouldn't work the other way. There's lots of things that I see people try to do in the S&P 500, and you try it on the treasuries and it doesn't work. And usually those are things that actually in the long run don't work on the S&P 500 either, but they're working in that time period. And so, well, thinking about playing this piece of news. I was lucky to make connections with sophisticated retail traders, which allowed me to escape the BS earlier than the most. I don't know about the treasuries. Are you saying that more money changes hands there versus ES? I'm saying that the amount of money in that market is more than the ES. Like the total value of the US equity market is orders of magnitude less than the total money used in the fixed income market. Not necessarily volume wise. Is not what I wanted to have happen, but okay. They are really pulling for this news, huh? Okay. The Treasury went up there. Prices paid 88, which is good. What about... Okay, employment wasn't quite as good as expected. What about the construction prices here? Spot 2 versus spot 5. Sophisticated retail trader, meaning people such as yours truly, Seth. Thank you very much. Always is going to be done, huh? Yeah. So I'm seeing a wide variety of instruments changing here. I do see the dollar getting crushed a bit. The Treasury was just all over the place. So I'm not so sure that the S&P 500 is really behaving the way that I would expect it to right now. Do you actively manage your personal wealth? Well, so if you're talking about like my longer term stuff, I do a little bit of managing on it, yes. So I don't just have everything in the S&P 500. In my 401k, I change the allocation from time to time based on the market conditions. And I do try and pick stocks, although I wouldn't say that's my specialty, but apparently I've done okay with it over the past year with the 2 or 3 that I picked. So, I don't know. It's getting hot in here. Do you invest in real estate? Not yet, but I might be doing that later this year. Well, suck. I don't think that I did the wrong thing there. But clearly, it must be something more going on than what I understand. Changes in currency exchange rates favorably contributed to our quarterly performance. Continued strong consumer demand for our high-quality products also provided increased sales. This from the ISM manufacturing report from a chemical company. I felt like that news was both dovish and bullish. Like, it did seem like the prices weren't increasing so much, and that could potentially give the Federal Reserve more room. But it also did show good amount of activity, and it was better than the expectations. So, dang, that didn't work out. I would like to have some of that passive residual income. Apartments maybe generate $10K a month. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next year in real estate. I'm watching it closely, but a lot of people are saying that the real estate market is in a bubble, and I'm not convinced that that's the case. It looks to me like that they're not making enough houses, So we'll see what happens when this moratorium comes through and kind of let that all play out, and then I'm really disappointed that I traded off that news and didn't make money from it. So market really pulled for it and everything. I thought that it was okay, good news, but I guess there was too many people on board. From the price of wood going up so much, if you owned a few trees, you were a millionaire. I don't know about that. So my understanding about that one is that it's not the supply of trees, it's the lumber mills. So the people that cut down trees still cut down as many trees as they ever did, and they never stopped. But the people that cut those trees into 2x4s, apparently a lot of them went out of business in 2019, because the price of wood was ridiculously low. So they just shut the sawmills down, and it's taking them time to get them started back up. So really, it's if you have a sawmill that you're a millionaire. Treasury ticks back up there again at 21. Never mind. It's getting hot in here again. I'm so sick of this. Well, the E-mini ticked a new low there by a tick. What do you got? Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index at the bottom of the hour. I don't know. So I'm wondering. Oh, geez, really? Yeah, no. All right. I'm wondering if this is some sort of a fill the gap sort of a thing. Because I'm having a hard time sorting out a reason for them to be as bearish as they've been. They definitely ran into something there. There's a little bit more. Yeah. My trades in the treasury actually weren't terrible. It's 50-50. E-mini, though, is just dismal. Just dismal today. Fighting the trend. I suppose that it could just be a technical move, though. Could be close the gap. That's definitely one that they like to do. certainly a lot of volume in here. Like, oh, okay, I was still on experiments, so let's try serious. Because you look at the amount of contracts trading here at 4204. Oh my gosh, it's so much nicer in here now that the AC turned on for me. Big old fatty bid there at 20.5, huh? Trump has been telling a number of people he's in contact with that he expects he will get reinstated by August. What? Okay. That's interesting. So because the Donald Trump guys are convinced that the Arizona audit is going to come out in Donald Trump's favor. And there's something going on in Pennsylvania too. The problem is that I think even if they, YouTube Finance is like, wait, what? Okay, so let me go back. So in Arizona, there is an audit going on right now. And there was another audit in Pennsylvania. I think it was Pennsylvania. So one of the things that they were finding in this other place was that paper folds were being counted by the machine counter as a vote. So like they would run through like 70 sheets and like 50 of them would be wrong. I was like, okay, guys. So then the Arizona, some people, some like state representatives, people that supposedly should know what's going on over there with that audit, seem to think that what is going on in the Arizona audit is going to uncover things that are quote unquote extraordinary, etc., etc. So I'm not saying that these things are true. I would probably take it with a grain of salt and be very skeptical about anything that's going to happen. But these guys think that there is a strong possibility that they are going to be able to prove that Donald Trump should be president and not Joe Biden, that Donald Trump actually won the election, and that because of voting errors and fraud or whatever, that he was that it was stolen from him. That's what they think is going to happen. And so that's been going on. All right. That's what's going on in Trump world. And so Donald Trump, apparently, basically what we're learning now is that Donald Trump has been looking at that and thinks, oh, okay, so I will be made president in August. By the time this all sorts itself out, they will say, oh, actually, I was supposed to be president, and they'll swear me in. That's what he thinks is going to happen. I don't think it works that way. In fact, I think that even if they proved beyond a shadow of a doubt, I don't know, you'd have to take it to the Supreme Court. And this would be a huge mess, but I don't think that it works that way. I don't think it works that way. It's like, oh, come on. I don't know, man. So let me ask you a question, though. If information came out that conclusively proved and convinced you that Donald Trump really did win the election, what would you do? What would you do? Or what do you think should happen? What do you think should happen? Man, I had a good trade there at 20.5, but they jumped in line. They scared him away. Now it's too high. YouTube finances, yeah, that would be a massively historical event, not up to me. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, it's hard to read the Donald and not think that that's what's going to happen, but then I look at it and I'm like, yeah, the chances of that happening are really low. They're probably wrong about something. So we'll see. Like the first thing is, if that audit comes out, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to challenge the audit, right? So. Dang it. The trade right is right there in the 5-year. What's Carl talking about here? Is he talking about that story that I brought up earlier? A note from Bank of America we couldn't have envisioned a year ago. There have been very few COVID breakthroughs despite the presence of new variants, with the CDC confirming last week an infection rate of 0.01% in vaccinated individuals and far lower hospitalization. Bank of America says it's not good news for Pfizer and Moderna shares. Should regular boosters prove necessary, we'd argue the commercial opportunity still looks constrained. Did you look at the symptoms of histamine intolerance? Oh, I didn't. You know what, though? I'm feeling a lot better now that antihistamine thing has kind of gone away. Like, I blew my nose this morning, and there was some gross stuff came out of it, and then I felt better. It wasn't like sick. It was like bloody nose kind of stuff. Fed's Quarles is talking right now, by the way. Man. Now that they're on the uptrend again, the Treasury is just not giving you any chances to get in. Yeah, okay. The E-mini is doing better, but I still haven't breaking out there that kind of upper end of the range. Really, we have to get to like 42.12 before people would really be like, okay, it's like a trend up now. Green stuff means sick when you blow your nose. Yeah, that's what I was taught too. I get just a lot of clear stuff out, but sometimes I think because of the surgery, I still kind of get a little bit of blackish kind of stuff come out of my nose from time to time. Plus, we were working. Yeah, so yesterday we went and bought some lumber. It actually was quite cheap because we were buying small, crappy stuff, but and we built a ladder. We built a little ladder for the chickens to sit on. And so I think I was also coughing up some of that, some of the sawdust. Also, by the way, gold is turning down. What's going on here in gold? I don't know if that one is a reaction to the news or what's going on here. I'm also starting to wonder, maybe, one thing that could move us down could be like the gamma having expired from last week, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so here comes that last number from the Dallas Fed. There's no estimate on that one, but previous was 37.3. One year ago today. Oh, yeah, I remember that. Oh, boy. No, that wasn't a year ago today. Oh, no, June. We're in June. Yeah, okay. Okay. It's talking about when Donald Trump walked across to the street to the church that had burned down and held the Bible up. It was a year ago. Man, I actually thought that was longer, people further away than that. Maybe not. Oh yeah, by the way, when is the... We should keep our eyes peeled for the UFO thing, right? Any day now, we're supposed to learn what the government thinks about UFOs. What's this? First Squawk tweets Bitcoin slips after Coinbase announces card tie-up with Apple and Google. Last off 1.34% at Ether down 3.39%. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, it hasn't moved at all. Maybe Baby Asher was giggling off camera yesterday. He didn't eat Cheerios. Don't feed my child cardboard. The government's takes on UFOs, we don't know what they are, neither does anyone else. Next. No, but that's not what they think though, right? like we've heard it. We've heard from enough of them that I don't know. We're going to get more information about it than that, right? It could be though. I don't know. It could be that there's just things that the military has made and they just not telling everybody about it, you know? Well, that was an ugly sweep. So exciting, isn't it, to think that it's something for disappointment? What makes you so sure that it's going to be disappointing? Is it because you're absolutely positive that aliens don't visit the Earth? Is it because I detect a very conceived bias about this that doesn't seem justified, right? There's no evidence, logic, evidence, and reason. What logic, evidence, and reason? So what logic, evidence, and reason do you have to believe that there's not going to be anything to the report? The UFOs are just moon Nazi aircraft. You ever seen those videos? Like, I think that these ones have been confirmed to have been manipulated. But have you seen these videos where people, it looks like they're filming aircraft coming off of the moon and stuff? They're totally fake though, because like the thing is the moon is so far. Like I don't think people realize how far away the moon is. The moon is so far away that scientists are kind of saying like that it shouldn't be called a moon. Like they're saying that the moon is really more of a sister planet, and it's much further away than other moons are from their planets. The time to believe in something is when there's evidence for it. Not necessarily true, no. Not necessarily. I mean, the whole thing would be like, so for instance, I'm really adamant about using empirical evidence to base your trading off of it, right? Well, why is that? Because if you're wrong, there's like really negative consequences, right? But if you required evidence for everything that you believe in, you wouldn't be able to function in life. It explains your belief in the supernatural. I don't know where have I ever said something that I believed in something supernatural. Well, I guess religion, if that's what you want to call that. But I don't have a belief in aliens. I'm just watching this news story. I'm just watching this news story unfold, and I'm seeing stuff confirmed that I haven't seen before. That's all. What do you believe in that you don't have evidence in? Okay, do you believe that... we could probably go through a bunch of different things. Like here's the thing, as I could probably list something for you that I would say you believe this, but you don't have the evidence. And you could probably go and find the evidence after the fact, but you yourself at this very moment don't know that there's evidence. You just are assuming you're using her heuristic to say that you believe it and you get it, right? It's whatever happened to the trip to Europa. It's a good question. I don't think that has happened yet. I think I know what you're talking about, Trade Rider. Okay, you believe that the cross of a moving average can generate sustainable long-term profits. And that's something that you don't have empirical evidence for. You've never claimed that? That's not the impression that you left me with, then. Did you get your... I did get the teleprompter. So we'll put it to use this next weekend, I think. I was going through, because the next video was supposed to be about the testing phase of it. And in the testing phase, not only are there a lot of like, okay, you're going to get results and this is why those results are wrong. You know, there's a lot of that. And this is going to be a big video. So I was like, well, maybe I should split more of that into the maintenance phase. I don't know. So I'm still trying to sort it out. Throwing an iPad. I'm just going to throw an iPad in it to read off the script that I've written. So hopefully it doesn't result in a much more, what would be the word? Hopefully it doesn't result in a more wooden presentation, but... I don't understand why this is like a radical idea that you can't function without having to rely on faith to some degree in your life. Which is more likely, beings bend the law of physics to come to Earth to play hide and seek, or a human error and equipment malfunction? I'm not sure that we can really say. I don't think that we have enough information to say. What I will say is that there is so for instance, there was an interview from one of the individuals that had seen one of these phenomenons. And they said that this was not just like a one-day thing, that it was something that they saw every day for 2 years. So I think that kind of rules out like an instrument malfunction of sorts. Also, like, yeah, you can see it on the cameras and on the radar, or not necessarily on the radar, but like people on the ground can see them. Okay. So I think that one is pretty ruled out. Like human error and equipment malfunction, I think the whole reason that this is a thing is because it has gotten to the point where the government has pretty much said, like, we know that there is something. We don't know what causes it. Sure, and that's where it ends, so we don't know what it was to fill it in with aliens. Is it thinking error? Well, but that's the whole thing, Ace, is like, maybe it is a thinking error, but I'm not the one that's saying it's aliens. Like, that's the thing. It's people at the highest levels of government, like Harry Reid and generals and stuff, that are saying they think it's aliens. Like, that's why it's going to be interesting to see what they come out with, because that's why it's a significant story. It's not me coming out and catching this little tiny glimpse of information and then extrapolating it out to mean this big thing and then assuming that it's aliens, right? So what you are doing right now, Ace, is an example of you making a conclusion without empirical evidence. Because you haven't been following the story, you haven't read all of the statements from these people in government and the stuff that they are saying. It is quite startling. What you are instead doing is you're going off of you're using a heuristic, basically, that for the past 30 years of your life, anytime that anybody talked about aliens, it was bogus nonsense. Right? It was like a hoax on Fox TV where, they did the alien autopsy thing, for instance. Right? I get why you would make that assumption and you would jump to the conclusion that, well, if it's aliens, that's always nonsense, so it must be nonsense. But I'm saying that Harry Reid is a high-ranking official that says that he says, here's what he said. Let's go into the Harry Reid one. Okay. Harry Reid said that he heard rumors, and he didn't say who it was, but he was given rumors from people inside the military that Lockheed Martin had an alien spacecraft that they were studying. And so he wanted to find out if that was true. When he was majority leader of the Senate, and so he made a request to access this information about whether or not Lockheed Martin had a alien spacecraft, and they denied his request. That's what Harry Reid said. Okay, that's the empirical evidence. Well, that was specifically what Harry Reid said. Okay, he's not lying about that. Okay, now that doesn't prove that there's aliens, but that's what he said. That's kind of interesting, right? So Harry Reid is kind of on the side of he suspects that it's aliens. Okay. So what am I saying? Does that prove that it's aliens? No. But he's not the only one that's saying this stuff. Now, there was another report, and the thing is, you're saying name one high-ranking official. We don't know what their name is, But the media report was that there are people at the top levels of the Pentagon that they personally believe that it's aliens, or they suspect that it's aliens. Right? Just because you're just getting off on Harry Reid. So here again, you are making an assumption that what Harry Reid said was false without empirical evidence, Ace. Yeah. They're still doing an audit about... So first of all, you're misrepresenting my opinion. I said that there is a possibility that there could be voter fraud and that it is fair to investigate it, and it was not fairly investigated. I believe that with the Arizona audit that's going on right now, that appears to me to be a fair and thorough investigation, and we'll see what they'll come out with. A bunch of people seem to think that they've already found something and they're kind of keeping it quiet, but until it comes out, I can't really say for sure. Well, we can talk about it. No, I'm saying you have nothing, Burger. No, you're not. Listen, you made a statement here. I mean, you didn't make this. This isn't the statement that you made, but based off of what you said, this is your hypothesis. Harry Reid is lying. Okay. So you're taking the default position that Harry Reid is wrong. Why? What empirical evidence do you have to suggest either way? Wouldn't you think that somebody that was at the highest position in the U.S. Congress, that if they say something like that it's worth consideration? Like, your statement is the time to believe something is when there's evidence. That's not true, because we are already pointing out things that you believe that you don't have evidence for. People say stupid shit all the time, right? Like you're taking the negative position on no evidence. Yes, it is. That is exactly a thing. You believe that there will be nothing in that report, and you don't have any evidence to assert that to support that assertion. In fact, it appears to me that you are not well educated on this story yet. The null position where there is no evidence. So what you're saying is that the null hypothesis should always be assumed to be true. I don't believe that. If the null hypothesis is always assumed to be true, then you never discover things. That there is an inherent, it is a huge restriction to that the null hypothesis is always true. Yes, I should go watch some crazy. I didn't say that it was aliens. I said the report will be interesting and we'll see what the report says. Because there's definitely something out there. That's why I'm just reiterating the empirical evidence that we do have. No, the null hypothesis is the hypothesis that is generally accepted. Okay. So the thing that's funny, Ace, is that the scientific community itself doesn't use your position, right? So the scientific community out there says there is a null hypothesis. Like, this is the thing that the scientific community generally believes. So, for instance, the null hypothesis is that the market is efficient, that market prices fully reflect all available information. That was the null hypothesis for many, many, many years, right? And the whole thing in the scientific community isn't to just say that, okay, the null hypothesis is true and everything. The whole thing is they spend all of their time saying, well, I'm not so convinced that that's actually the case. And they do everything they can to prove or disprove it. Right? I'm just saying, there are times in your life that you have to make decisions based off of incomplete information. Right? Like, that's the thing, is if you were to make a bet about whether or not there were aliens or not, and I wouldn't make that bet because I don't think that we have any real probability of predicting it. Correct. That's how, yeah. So the way that we find out truths about the world is that we don't just assume the null hypothesis. We say, hey, maybe the null hypothesis is wrong, and then you go about trying to disprove it. But that doesn't all work out all the time, right? Because sometimes there's a situation where you really just can't know. I'm so frustrated with the E-mini today, but they must be heading down to 4,200. I don't know why it's doing what it's going to do, so I'm just going to sit here for now. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I got a good amount of favorable excursion on that, but oh my gosh, I hate it when it does this. Sometimes the profit window in Jigsaw will like kill over. Okay, well that was okay because I basically got to scratch it on that one. So could try doing it again. The core of the thinking error, thinking something is true without sufficient evidence because you want it to be true. No, wrong. Okay, Ace. So if you are in a life and death situation and you don't have any empirical evidence to support a specific course of action and you have to act now in the next 5 seconds, what do you do? Your model of the world is not realistic, one, and it's not how you operate either. So should we go back to, do I still have that? Did I save that? Yep, I did. Okay, let's go back to our decision-making matrix. Okay. So first we have a question. Is it relevant? If aliens were real, it would be relevant. I suppose you don't have to be interested in it, but we're talking about it. So is it relevant? Yes. Okay. Next step. Gather empirical evidence. Okay. So Ace didn't do that. What did Ace do? Ace said, okay, the null hypothesis is that that's not true, so don't believe claim. Right? Wait, we'll go back. We make a new one. New slide. Here's Ace's decision-making process. Okay. Okay, so we start here with, here subject. Automatically assume null hypothesis. And make that a little bigger. All right. And then the next one is force other person to prove them wrong. Even though, and then the next thing is that comes along is other person provides evidence. Right. And then I think the next step in that process was you're wrong and look stupid. That's what happens on that one. Right. Well, when we check it out, it has always so far been perfectly normal, natural explanations or unknown. Okay, so that's a logical fallacy. Just because that's been the case in the past doesn't mean that will be the case this time. Past performance is not indicative of future results, right? So what am I saying? I'm making a suggestion here, which is this. There is a suggestion that there are objects that the military sees on a regular basis that they do not know the origin of. The hypothesis is that it is aliens. So what is the next step that we do? Do we assume it's false and wait for somebody else to try and prove it to us? Or, if we're going to talk about it, gather empirical evidence. Gather empirical evidence. How did you decide they were objects? I mean, if you can see it, it's some sort of an object, Ace. Like, something's causing that. What would that object, if that object is an atmospheric distortion? No, that's false. Ace says, and so far we have no evidence. No, that is false. That is just objectively false, Ace. And this is what I'm saying. You are making the assumption that there is no empirical evidence when you haven't researched it. You are making a conclusion that there is no empirical evidence without empirical evidence. Do you not see this is the exact contradiction that I'm trying to point out to you? You haven't researched it. You don't have the empirical evidence, and you are making a decision that there is no evidence for it anyways. You're making, okay, so you're saying research, watching a grainy video. Here again, anybody that's been reading this story, they read what you just said, and you know what they're thinking? Oh, Ace doesn't have a fucking clue what he's talking about because he hasn't looked at it. Demonstrate that an object was observed. Okay, so let's review the empirical evidence. There are videos. There's like, I think 6 or 7 videos now at this point, okay? There are eyewitness testimonies from people in the military, and we have reports from a couple of pretty high-ranking people. Harry Reid has been talking about it. There are unnamed sources within the military that have been talking about it. Yeah, Harry Reid suspected that they had one, and he was told no, that he couldn't access that information, which seems kind of weird to me. I don't know how you sort that one out. Do you sit down and so you're in think about that one. Just let's just think. Here's why I think that could be significant, or probably why Harry Reid thinks it's significant. Right? Is you're in the military, you're military intelligence or whatever, and you're in charge of whether or not people can access the data that they're given. And they say, I want information on whether or not Lockheed Martin has an alien UFO. And you look it up and you see, oh, okay, they don't have an alien UFO. But we're not allowed to tell Harry Reid that. Like, what? I don't know, make much sense to me. But that's what you kind of have to assume in that situation. Okay. If Harry Reid wanted to look in your underwear drawer, and would that mean you robbed a bank? Well, listen, Ace. If Harry Reid wanted to look in my underwear drawer for evidence of aliens, I would tell him that there's no aliens in my underwear drawer. I think that's a poor example. Like if there's no aliens, then you would just tell him, no, there's no aliens. There's no information to access, Harry. Oh man. I wouldn't tell him no. I would tell him that you're not allowed to look, but I would also tell him that the thing that you're looking for isn't there. Right? I think that if I was in the military, I would write a letter that would say, Harry Reid, there is no information on UFOs or Lockheed Martin, and there's nothing for me to give you. Right? I wouldn't just say, no. Request denied, no explanation. I don't know. But maybe the military does that. I could be wrong. So that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's kind of like the scenario. If we're assuming that what Harry Reid is nothing, that's basically what had to have happened, right? Was that the military, there's nothing there, but regardless, the military said request denied anyways. But okay, so it is a piece of empirical evidence that Harry Reid, that the Senate Majority Leader has been looking at this stuff and suspects things. Okay. And then there's a whole bunch of other things. But here's the thing, Ace. I'm not going to do the research for you. Right? So I'm not making, the only claim that I'm making is that there is evidence. There is empirical evidence, information that you can go and look at and verify for yourself. A whole bunch of other things. Let's hear your best one. Why do I have to do the research for you? Do you understand what I'm saying here, Ace? Do you understand what I'm saying here? So here it is. We say we're going to discuss a subject. What do? You gather empirical evidence. Okay? If you don't care enough to go and gather empirical evidence, then you probably shouldn't be commenting on it. I mean, I can go and I could pull up a bunch of stuff. I'm not like, or like I'm here on stream. I haven't gone and like collected every major story about this. Right? We could, if you really want me to, I can go and I can collect every piece of information that we have about this, and I could make a video. I could make a pretty long video about it. Okay? Just what we do and what we don't know. Okay? Now, what we do and what we don't know at this current time does not prove that there are or are not aliens. Okay? I'm just asking for your best one. I think that the best one is that there was a military member in the Air Force that saw one of these phenomenons in the video. Like, they interviewed him because he was there when that phenomenon occurred, and he said that this wasn't just a one-time thing, that they saw it every day. That is the best piece of empirical evidence that we have. That does not empirical evidence that it's aliens, but it is empirical evidence on the subject. You know, it's not just one guy, Ace. My God. No. Like go and find the stories first, Ace, before you start talking about it. That's what I'm saying. Go and do your research. You're talking about something that you don't know anything about. But I gotta go.